So recently, a bunch of unaired pilots found their way online, dating back to the 90s. What I want to do is look at these pilots and determine two things. One, did it have potential? And two, how different would popular culture be if this pilot was picked up for series? Today we're opening up the pilot vault and looking at the pilot for a show called Right versus Wrong, a political comedy series, another one, this time starring Debra as a Republican named Evelyn Wright. Get it? That's why it's called Right versus Wrong. It's so clever. This series marks Messing's first trip back to network TV after wrapping up her NBC comedy Will and Grace. Now, there was a lot of pressure on the cast of that show because they were struggling to escape it, similar to the Seinfeld curse, where all the writers struggled to get work after the show. Pretty much every show those guys did failed. This looked like it was going to be the case for Will and Grace as well. Eric McCormack's TNT show, Trust Me, was cancelled a year prior due to low ratings, and Megan Mullany's attempt to get a talk show failed as well. Weird, this is the second time that we've talked about that talk show on Pilot Vault. We spoke about it briefly in the video about the talk show What's Happening with Mike Mitchell. In Right versus Wrong, Debra attempts to make a conservative pundit that's funny and relatable, I think. I'm not too sure. It also stars Cheryl Hines from Curb. She's currently married to a man who is quite problematic, so let's not talk too much about her. Melissa Raunch is in it, from The Big Bang Theory, and the late Carrie Fisher plays her manager. She steals every scene she's in. She's fantastic. Now, this isn't a very good sitcom. I could definitely see how you could do this right, but this wasn't it. I'm not surprised at all that it was scrapped. Debra actually does a decent job of breaking out of her previous character, Grace, and taking on this new one. She's certainly not the problem here. The problem is that the concept of the show is just kind of boring and obvious. We start by showing Grace's office. Oh, sorry, her character is called Evelyn in this. God, she looks so young here. You can tell how soon after Will and Grace this was, only like 3 or 4 years after. So Evelyn is going to do a talk show, and she tells her assistant to bring her book called Democrat, great name, and she tells her to take a best-selling sticker from another book and put it on a new one, despite her book not being a bestseller. Evelyn talks about how she wants to break into liberal mainstream, something that Republicans apparently struggle to do. Melissa Raunch's voice is so irritating in this. I thought she put it on for The Big Bang Theory. I didn't know that's how she actually speaks. Then Cheryl Hines comes in. She's a host of a TV show, and she mentioned the Better Show.
Evelyn, you should come. You'd love it. It's always sunny.
Making me wish I was watching Always Sunny instead. We then get a quote from Governor Ann Richards. Who is that? Right, I just looked it up and she was the governor of Texas. Never heard of her, but her quote is, "In politics, your enemies can't hurt you, but your friends will kill you." Which honestly, it's a bit heavy-handed, especially coming immediately after a scene where Evelyn told her assistant to be a little less Judas and a little more Jesus.
Less Judas and a little more Jesus, please.
Which wasn't a great joke, but it has the structure of a joke, so I'll give it to them. It's also ironic how this quote, "but your friends will kill you," is here, because Evelyn really doesn't have any friends, and we'll get to that in a minute. John Michael Higgins comes in. He's a presenter on the talk show, because of course he is. That's a role he was born to play. Sure, I think he's got more experience judging a cappella competitions, but I'm sure he'll do fine here. Cheryl Hines and Evelyn have some banter, where they're constantly making jabs at each other. I'm not a big fan of Cheryl Hines. I liked her in Curb, but in real life she's a bit weird, if not dangerous, you know, considering who she's married to. And isn't it weird how she's the only actor who hasn't posted a photo of her being out there with the other actors during the strike? Just saying. So of course I'm going to support Evelyn. If anything, that's a plus point of the show. Get someone who I don't like to be the enemy. That way I'll support the main character, no matter how poorly written they are. Evelyn's debate with Cheryl becomes a hit online, and everyone is talking about it. There's a boring subplot about Evelyn's wedding that's going on. I hate subplots where it's like, oh, it's very important we planned this wedding no one cares about. That was 70% of the Nancy Drew pilot, and we saw how well that went. It's Carrie Fisher. God, I love her. I miss her so much, you know. What a wonderful actor and human being. Evelyn tells Carrie that she has to be a bridesmaid, but Carrie Fisher turns her down. It's here where we see a bit of vulnerability in Evelyn, as she talks about how women hate her, which is why she doesn't have any bridesmaids. A couple of tables away, there's a group of women laughing and having fun, and you can tell it bothers her. It's like she's having flashbacks to being at school and not being able to hang out with the cool kids. What I like most about this is that they don't force in some heavy dialogue where she goes, "Look at them all having fun." She doesn't mention it. That's good writing. Some guy then asks Evelyn to sign her book, and then immediately burns it in front of her, which she actually thought was a solid joke, the way she brushes it off. It's solid, I enjoyed it. The dad from Gilmore Girls then walks in. He's playing a pilot and her fiance. His name is Baker. Funnily enough, the next episode that we're doing of Pilot Vault is a pilot by his wife on Gilmore Girls, Lauren Graham, so look out for that. Evelyn asks Baker to postpone the wedding again. They've been delaying it for 8 years now, so he says no. So now she's got to desperately find some bridesmaids. It's not a very interesting subplot, is it? We then have another scene with Carrie Fisher, which I really enjoyed. I was genuinely made up that she was in this for more than one scene. She has some solid lines as well, which I can only imagine that she wrote herself. Carrie Fisher was a famous script doctor, and she worked on hundreds of scripts, turning them from crap to pretty good. You know what? I've just realised what the connection is here. Carrie Fisher's mum, Debbie Reynolds, played Grace's mum on Will and Grace. I'd forgotten about that. That's only just come to me. So that means that Debra Messing has acted with both actors. That's quite cool, isn't it? But yeah, Carrie Fisher was great at both acting and writing. I wonder if she worked on the rest of this script, because it's certainly not bad. There's some decent lines in there. It wouldn't surprise me if she did something to it. Evelyn tries to ask Cheryl Hines to be a bridesmaid because she's got nobody else. There's a cool bit where Cheryl Hines swears and it's bleeped out by some buzzing on the set of the show.
Direct descendant of a giant. Go yourself, Evelyn.
It would have been funnier if the noise didn't bleep out the second swear word, but I suppose he still had to block them out since it's ABC, so yeah. Evelyn goes to lunch again. God, they're really using this restaurant set as much as possible, aren't they? Anyway, her manager has set up a bit of a friend date with a woman to potentially help her make a new friend. But the joke here is that the friend she set her up with is old and weird. Evelyn then hides in the toilet and she calls her assistant to come and pick her up, which apparently is too much to ask because her assistant doesn't have any confidence driving. Is this meant to be funny? I'm not sure. So Evelyn tries to sneak out, but then she bumps into Cheryl Hines in the bathroom, who's actually nice to her because she's a little drunk in the middle of the day. I mean, I'd drink too if I was married to that Kennedy fellow. Evelyn tries to see if she'll be a bridesmaid, but she's shot down, so she leaves. I can't help but feel a little bad for Evelyn. She's so lonely because she's Republican and just spews hateful things. Well, I suppose she's not really helping herself, is she? Just be nicer to people. Don't be so bigoted. Maybe that would help her make some friends. Right, I know that Republicans are easy to bash and make fun of, but is it really wise to make a whole show about doing that? Isn't like a little less than half of America Republican? So you're kind of alienating like 48% of your viewership? Just seems like a little reckless, especially for a show on a major network like ABC. I don't know. I feel like that's where a lot of political comedies fall apart. I just found this article from 2010 that says that they shot this pilot a second time after it not being very well received the first time round. So I wonder if the one we're watching was the first go at the pilot or the second. Not sure if there's any way of finding out, but it's interesting. It's something to note. It's a bit strange how this show got a second pilot and yet still never made it to air. Well, I suppose it's not that strange, is it? All in the Family had 3 pilots, and so did Three's Company. Ironically. I think Suddenly Susan had about 2, and so did Happy Days. But at least those shows finally aired. But with this one, we got nothing. 2 cracks are a pilot and then no series. That's bad, isn't it? Evelyn gets a call from Carrie Fisher, who tells her that her book is now #1. And then the big ending joke is her assistant accidentally punches her in the face. Yeah, I'm not sure why they ended on that either. I'll never understand the humour that goes, it's funny because it's physical comedy, right? No, you just had an actor pretend to hit another actor in the face. It's not very funny, is it? And that was all right versus wrong had to offer. Yeah, it wasn't great, was it? In terms of entertainment value, I'm looking to place it somewhere near the middle, because it wasn't insultingly bad, but it wasn't that funny either. You know what, I'm gonna stick it between Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office and Playing Chicken. I think that's fair. Right, do you want me to talk about more Unaired pilots? If so, leave a comment below, letting me know which one you want me to watch next. And subscribe, help us reach 4K. Right, I'll let you go. Bye.